Welcome to Sacred Magic. Violet is on a quest to bring sacredness back into our everyday experiences. Anyone can have an extraordinary life when they are able to tap into their sacred magic within. Violet and her guests will be sharing their divine passions, inspirations, and stories of connecting with their sacred magic. We are so happy you have joined us today. Let's get started with your host, the magical creator of Discover Your Spiritual Gifts, Violet Rayne.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Sacred Magic's podcast. I'm your host, Vialet Rayne, and my guest today is Jaymi Elford, and she's the inner compass. She uses the cards as a tool to explore the world we live in and create meaning. She's an author of Tarot Inspired Life and Triple Goddess Tarot, which I'm excited about. She writes and produces innovative divination techniques in Portland, Oregon, and she's won the ITA Carta Judges Choice Award for her work on the Heaven and Earth Tarot. Welcome. How exciting to have you on the show.
It is exciting. I know that we're recording this in October, so even better, what better way to bring in the spooky season when the veil is thinning and divination abounds. So thank you, Violet, for having me on. I really appreciate it.
I'm so excited. So talk to me a little bit. How did your journey get here? What got you to this point to be this creative artist out there creating?
Well, I had always wanted to be a writer. That has always been something that I believe strongly was in my DNA and my spiritual DNA as well. I grew up in Colorado in the 80s and 90s, so I had a lot of leeway to running around and just exploring miles and miles of where I lived. And so I grew into loving nature. That and several years, more than 10 years of being at a summer camp called Geneva Glen, really learning different things. And the way they structured their camp was like learning about indigenous peoples in the United States, then doing a lot of myths and magic through the Knights of King Arthur and the Round Table stories. That grew my depth and got me folklore, all that stuff, into kind of a more spiritual approach. But it wasn't, of course, the normal religion or the normal spirituality. That all led me into rocks and stuff. And so crystals was my first kind of gateway drug, if you will, to all of this. But when I was 13, I discovered a tarot deck in the Westminster Mall. Barnes and Noble didn't really exist. We had B. Dalton, we had Walden Books. And I remember saving my money up, and I got the US Games, the Witch's tarot deck, the one that was used in the Roger Moore James Bond movie, which I didn't know at the time. Everybody's like, oh yeah, that was that. I'm like, I just like the pictures. But so that's kind of how I came into tarot for a little bit, but then I left it because even though I was reading adult level books by then, 13-year-olds spiritual grasp aren't that great yet. And all it had were the keyword meanings. And I was just like, how do you use this? And Denver didn't have a lot of actual books. Like, I didn't come across Mary Kay Greer or Rachel Pollack until years later. We just didn't have that where I lived. So I stepped away to do I Ching, and then I came back more in high school after I was able to drive and get into Boulder, where it was more spiritually acceptable. And that was my first true metaphysical store experience, where I could buy the actual books for the Heimdall Tarot, which Rachel did write. But at college, I was an English major with an anthropology minor, and that minor was more on the religion, myth, and magic, the cultural aspects, because I want to know why did we have certain beliefs? Why did people tease each other for being different? Why couldn't we just accept everything? And that eventually led me to paganism, to magic, to all of this. But it always had this undercurrent of that tarot deck where I do tarot spells. They are in my everyday use. I mean, you can kind of tell a little bit behind me here that, these are all some of my divination stuff, my Jamie Sawyer tarot tiles, various other decks, this little bag right here with the kind of the bird partial bird print that you can see holds my charm collection, that I'm I want to say I'm a junkie, but that's being, cruel to it. It's my path. It's what I do. It's my love. So that's, in a nutshell, the weavings of my magic.
Well, I love that. And, talking about tarot, a lot of people don't understand tarot, right?
Mm-hmm.
It can be complicated for people that are just picking up their first deck. So you being on this journey for a while, somebody that's listening that's just picked up their first deck and is a little overwhelmed, right? A little overwhelmed.
No. Yeah.
What would be some of your thoughts that you would share with them?
Oh goodness. The first thing I would say is, yay, you got a deck, or yay, you're considering tarot. It's fun. It's not an easy cure-all. Some people come to it thinking, especially right now as we're still kind of in the pandemic, but kind of creeping out and putting our toes out to make sure that we can still do stuff in the world. Tarot, there's a lot of people that come to tarot because they think it could help them with the troubles and the mental acuities that they faced, the challenges that they faced. And while yes, tarot can help you, it's not a replacement for mental health. I have 2 mental health professionals that help even me through everything, but it can serve as your guide, your best friend, and something to just kind of play with. So my first thing to you would be, if you haven't found the deck or the deck, number one, you'll never find the deck that's perfect for you. I'm still seeking, and I've been doing this for 30 years. Just get a deck that you like at that moment. The deck that's right for you now, number one. It could be whatever art you like. I tend to like the ones that have all 78 cards with pictures on it, just because it's easier to kind of talk to them, instead of the ones that have pips, playing cards, just the symbols on it. Mm-hmm. And then I just play. I tell people, get a really crappy journal. I love the composition notebooks. Those old school bound books, lined or unlined, dotted, it does not matter. Because the cheaper, the better. Because that way you're not going to be like, I'm ruining this book, this $80 book I got. It's got, my handwriting's not perfect. It doesn't matter. You can scribble on it as page 1, and that way you can go, oops, I marked it, but now it's yours. And just write about what you see in each card. You can do a card of the day kind of exploration with this. Ask the card what it means to you right then and there. And
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
I love the play, because we take everything so seriously today.
Some people do. There are people out there that are probably, if they're listening to me, they're like, tarot is a sanctified, esoteric form. You can only do it X. And that's something, I have a class that I am going to be teaching at the end of this month at a place up in Olympia called Boom Gallery. It's called Tarot for the Curious. This is before you learn the cards. I don't tell meanings. I don't do readings. And it's basically, we start out with the myths, the thou shalt not, or tarot should be, you can only use it once a day and you can't read for yourself. Or if you read for yourself, once a week type thing. So we cover myths, because that is where tarot kind of has a power, in and of itself. Those myths, why does the church hate it so much? Which is funny, because if you look back at some of the historical decks, they have a lot of that Western mystical. The occult is from the church, whether it's Christianity or Catholicism. It's in there in the DNA, and to me, it's an agnostic tool. Anybody can use this if you desire to kind of play with those cards and the images on them. So this class just talks a little bit about that. It talks about structure, how to pick a good reader, because that can be kind of a huge thing, especially with charlatans or people thinking, oh, I read one book, and now I can charge $500. It's like, sorry, dear, but, technically we kind of frown on that when we've had 30 years of, experience going to conventions, teaching, and all these new techniques. But I mean, it is out there. And then I teach them how to play with their decks for a little bit, getting to know the deck, interviewing them, the deck and seeing what strengths and weaknesses are. And that's, to me, the important thing. It's to jump into it and to understand the history and stuff behind it.
I love that. The myths, right? I get asked 1,000 questions in my store every day. So I'm not supposed to buy a deck. It's supposed to be gifted to me. And I go, if you believe that, I buy decks all the time. Like, I have no limit. I got hundreds of decks.
If you don't say it, it's like I can kind of maybe see in the past because, decks were kind of limited and we don't have, Amazon and the internet and the presses that, you can put out your own art and then instantly get it back like in a couple of weeks. Back then, they probably wanted to kind of gatekeep, where they get their sources and make sure the people were, again, that sanctity that, were true. Do you truly want to know the, esoteric ins and outs of the tarot? That I can kind of get. But still, it's like, if you don't say it, I had a magic instructor say, if you don't say it, then it's not true. So if you don't tell somebody your desire, you're never going to get it.
Right.
And
I think all that. And I so believe, I love what you say about people getting a book and then they're automatically a reader, right? There's so much more to it than that. We have readers at our center that I put through training before they're ever let loose with the public, because I want them to have certain criteria or certain understanding or expectation or, quality. And, even in my classes, we'll have people come in and they want to read everybody. And I'm like, no, we don't do that. We don't do that. They didn't ask you to go through their lingerie drawer. Please don't do that unless they ask you to tap in.
Oh, the ethics. Oh, those ethics. Yeah, I love that you put that way, the going through your lingerie drawer, because I am one of those folks that I would rather read for the person who's present in front of me than their ex or somebody that's not. I mean, if at the end of the day, it's like, you're spending money with me, why do you want to talk about somebody else? Why not you? But I love that because there are people that are like, yeah, I'll go through somebody's lingerie, just take a sneak peek, just see what they got. And then just like, did they say yes? Did they, give you consent?
Yeah, it's just, I think there needs to be ethics in everything and perspective and expectation, and people need to know what that looks like. So I love that. So talk to us, Jaymi, about your decks and your creations one at a time. We want to tap into what you've created and give us some background and share with us.
You got it. So first, I guess I'll go with the book just because this can be a fun gateway into learning. So many, this is Tarot Inspired Life, and it kind of differs from many other books out there in that I don't actually give you the majority of the book full of card meanings. Instead, this book is kind of like the companion book to those types of things, like my best friend Melissa Sanova's book, Kitchen Table Tarot. If you need to have meetings up front, read hers first and then come to my book and see all the cool things that you can do. How to make your own meanings, how to use tarot in with creative writing to craft fun stories or use it as a creativity coach. Do spell work with the cards, reach out to your ancestors or other critters with it. I talk about, I learned how to crochet thanks to tarot because many decks don't have nice little, this is a sewed deck box that a friend of mine made, but they don't have these nice, tuck boxes that go along with the decks. And so I learned how to crochet bags for them. So, or even sewing, like, again, this is my friend, Susie Shang, Terrorista, makes these 3D bags that perfectly fit decks, and they're addictive to do. And so with that book, it gives you all these different ways of how to connect. And at the end, instead of like saying you can go pro, it talks about a little bit about going pro, but many people, don't want to become a pro reader. There's a lot of stuff that's involved in becoming a pro reader, especially in today's day and age where you need a professional mic, a professional camera, maybe a document camera, all this setup. You need to learn how to market even. It's not just reading, it's all this other stuff. So the book really kind of dives into integrating it into your daily rituals, your daily lives. And the cover features a deck that I created in 2017 called the Triple Goddess Tarot, and it's published by Lo Scarabeo, but you can also find it on the Llewellyn site. And I did forget to mention, this is a Llewellyn book, so you can find it wherever you want, like
Even
on their
in our
site.
store.
You have it?
Of course.
Yay! Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Thank you so much. Yay!
Yeah.
So the Triple Goddess Tarot wasn't like, I didn't come to Lo Scarabeo and say, hey, I want to create a Triple Goddess deck. They kind of threw me into the deep end. I had been doing books for them. I was a staff writer, which means they give me a list of decks that I can pick from. I pick however many they want, and then I write those booklets to their specifications. Well, after doing this for like 5 or 6 times, they said, we want you to design a deck. And I went, okay. And they gave me the Triple Goddess motif and then said, go. And I went, oh. So that first time I didn't really know how to do anything. I'm a daughter of Lilith. She's the one that adopted me. And so I asked her to go talk to the ladies, the maiden mother crone, because to me, they are agnostic of, the pantheon. I know that the Lo Scarabeo wanted a more Celtic kind of tradition, but I'm not Celtic. I don't identify with that, that pantheon. So I just had them talk to me, and she went out and talked to them. And then 5 months later, much to, everybody's chagrin, because they were like, faster, you got to work faster. I'm like, but I don't know. They actually gave me a download for the maiden story, which is the magician. This is the high priestess, the empress. And see, I'll fast forward a little bit. The lover's card, the mother, who is the strength card. And then the crone, who is the devil. So it took a while, but once they were willing to tell me their story, then I could give like small paragraphs to Franco Vivelli, who is my artist, who did all these he's done a lot of decks with Lo Scarabeo. He's got quite a fan following. This is the 3 of wands here. And he took my blibberings and directions and made this wonderful art deck to it. So, and then and then I just turned my stuff into the booklet in the specifications they want. And then ta-da, a deck. It was really fun. I learned a lot. People will pick this deck up and see a lot of me in there, or at least 2017 me. And of course, as a creative, we all are like, that was good, but I wish I could have done some things better. So one of the things I had to deal with was like the language barrier between me being born and raised with, United States English, and they were Italian, but had English, and mostly I think the British English, so there was a little bit of language barrier to work. But I've got designs for more decks and more creations out there, as well as more books. So stay tuned for that. But this is the deck that I won the award for, the Heaven and Earth Tarot. And they asked, Lo Scarabeo asked me to write the big book for this deck. Jack Sephiroth's art. He's a Chinese illustrator, and he's just amazing. He takes his sketches and then basically photo enhances them and does all these amazing work. This particular edition has 2 different versions. This one that came with the big, long text version, which has questions and stuff into it. And then they just released just a compact box set. So I've written all of the documentation for that, the book and the little white book, aka LWB. And the art is just amazing. I first had to come to terms with this deck because it's not in the full. It's in this card and this card, the magician, the high priestess. I'm like, oh no, that's Jesus and Mary. And I'm not Christian, and I've had, not negative stuff, but of course, forced religion is never fun, right? So I had to come to peace with a lot of this. Like, this is the Emperor card, and there's our Pope. But I wrote this booklet in accordance to what I know about Kabbalah, both the Q form, which is the Western Mystery Series, and the K form, the Judaism version. And that is, to me, a little bit deeper than like had I brought in a lot more Christian symbolism to me, because again, I don't, I'm not in that faith. So I try and explore it from the Kabbalistic approach, saying this is how, you can use it in your heart. We have Kether, we have Malkuth. Here's how to kind of, the journaling kind of explains some of those spaces as well. So I was really honored that the judges picked us for a best deck of 2021 from last year. And it was just amazing. And then
that's amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a real big honor. Like, my book was nominated for an award one year, but I didn't win. That year, Ethany Dawn's Who Are You in the Tarot won. And then the Triple Goddess was also nominated for a different award. I can't remember which one it was, but this is my most recent release. As you can tell, it's very much similar to that Heaven and Earth because it is the same artist. So it's still Jack Sephiroth, who partnered with his friend, Alan Dempsey here, and they did a runic take on the tarot. And my goal in this one with the big book, the little one hasn't been released yet, was to kind of ease rune readers into tarot and vice versa. Get rune readers or tarot readers kind of understanding a little bit of runes. So I did shuffle this deck. So here's the moon. But the majors have the major Futhark. Some of the minors will have the lesser and majors, as well as I think it's the swords or the wands uses the Anglo-Saxon form. So we've got all three of different forms in it. And I go through and I talk about each one on their own, and then talk about like this, the high priestess or the I'm probably butchering this, the vulva, the witches of Scandinavian, Nordic life. And then the knights, or all of them, all the court cards have bind runes. So I had to figure out, what runes were on here because I wasn't given a list, and then kind of create the magic from it. So you can also see the uses of runes. Like I have a rune set, but I don't read the runes. I mostly use them for the bind runes, for making sigils of magic. That's how I prefer to use and honor that culture through that. There's another one with another bind rune on it. So as you can see, it's, when you're hired to do a deck, to write for it, to me, I look at it as world building, where I get like an Art Nouveau or a steampunk or something, along the lines of, here's the title. And then I'm like, okay, what's this world going to be? How am I going to introduce people to tarot? Like I used to tell people, throw away the book, just use the cards, right? And now I'm like, well, I kind of want you to read my books. I mean, a little self-gratifying and stuff. I mean, I am a Leo, but, it's one of those where I like, how can we honor, both our intuition and the intent and the, introduction to tarot to those that have never had a deck before. And it's this real kind of dance especially when they give you a word count constraint or in those Garabao's case, a character count constraint. And you're like, I only have 8 pages to describe this deck. And then you got to be real choosy with your diction, which is your word choice or your keywords. And the images, when I get them, sometimes you don't get all the images. You just kind of have to go along with the vibe of it and just define, okay, if this is the world and the vibe, how can I place the standard meanings into this to hopefully, make sense to people?
Well, I love that. And there's some truth in that. I tell people, don't use the book as a crutch. However, you need to read where the artist is coming from. What was the overall purpose of this deck? What were they trying to create? And I think in the beginning, sitting with a book just a little bit, to understand what direction they were going in is super helpful. However, you don't want to sit down and do a reading for somebody and go, hold on a minute, let me read you what they, you want to, because the cards are so much more than what we create them to be. And it's that person's filter system and what they're getting and their intuition that all has to come in. And those that are listening, because I know a lot of my listeners are very new, Jaymi's combining several divinations, tarot and runes. If you've never looked at runes, you should look at runes and how they work. And then when she says she's binding runes, it means you take two symbols and you put them together to create a new symbol that holds the energies of the multiple runes to bring in what you want. Now, doesn't that sound really cool? I teach Warriors of Light, and they're required to learn runes and how to bind runes and how to write with runes and how to do magical things with runes. They're so powerful, but it can be overwhelming to people, just like tarot.
Oh, yeah.
Want me to learn this? And she's combining two together, which I think is amazing that you're able to do that and find your way through that. So kudos, Jaymi.
Thank you. I used many different sources. Like I used Diana Paxson's book. I can't remember the name. It just completely eluded me. The big one, Taking Up the Runes. There we go. Taking Up the Runes. I used some of my friends were rune readers first. And so I used cheat sheets and stuff that I had. And again, online resources to kind of figure out, combining different meanings and structures and then looking at the cards. So I spent a lot of time, at least on the runic tarot, trying to give a good intent, my best foot forward of cultural appreciation for runes for the Scandinavian cultures, the place where, quote unquote, Vikings came from, and as well as honoring them, who they were, their myths, because I've read a lot of Norse myths. So I tried to, draw a lot of that into it and just honor them rather than trying to kind of just throw something together. Because in my version, when I design a deck, I want them to be used. I want them to be appreciated. And yeah, I mean, like you said, you want new readers to kind of get an idea of the methods and stuff in the book, but I also want them to honor their own intuition, where that's something I didn't learn when I got my first deck. That 13-year-old me, I was like, I have to memorize all these damn things. No, I already have to memorize, Spanish. I'm not going to memorize another language. And then, had I been told, a statement in that book that, just look at the pictures and they will guide you to what they mean, that would have just made me, oh, that's all I have to do. And then I can go back and read books, or, hey, there are more books out there to research. That goes a long way.
It does. And when I talk to people, like I've written a tarot journal book and it's spiral bound, just like your notebook you talk about, but it goes through each of the cards and it has meanings. And, I want people to sit with each card for a little while. How do you connect your life stories to this card? What symbolism jumps out at you because you can connect to that energy? Because that's how you learn it. It's not about memorizing. It's about picking up that card and going, this time in my life, this was the devil. This time in my life was the tower. This time in my life was the hangman. And you can relate to the energy of that card, which means it helps you be able to read and share with others that symbolism. I think that's the best way to learn, but it takes a little bit of time. It's not going to happen tomorrow.
It does. And, if you do want to start readings right away, go for it. I mean, you just, if you're going to start charging and you're still what me and my friends call on book, then tell them, I'm charging you a little bit because this takes time and energy, and, you're funding me to buy more decks or more books so I can learn and get better, or classes like Violet's classes. Just let them know I'm reading on book. And maybe that book is from the deck that you're using, but maybe that book is your own tarot personal data assistant. And I talk about that in my book, How to Make Your Own Tarot PDA. So maybe you are using, your vocabulary, your book to read. Just let people know. Let it, don't charge $150 and then say, and say your own book. That's, I mean, some people are like, well, that's kind of mean. However, it's more or less like I've spent so much money into decks or into classes, into various certifications, but that's a whole nother episode on tarot certifications, teaching podcasts, teaching others, and trying to raise up our community, not just like the, sanctity of tarot, but trying to show that we are a profession that is just as good as mental health, as doctors, as us, as the Christian, priesthood, where we do provide a service. It's just that we use, pictures. And that's, on Card Slingers earlier this year, we did talk about what to charge at various levels. Me, Hillary Perry Haggerty, and Melissa Sanova, we came up with 4 different levels, like beginner. When you're on book, yeah, you can charge. Just let them know you're on book. Let them know that you're not, the grand poobah yet, that you're learning to become the grand poobah. I encourage all my students to, do better, be better, take my stuff and run with it. So, you can do tarot. Tarot, though, is a lifelong plus journey where I'm still learning about cards. I'm still learning about meanings. There are times in my readings that I blank on cards and I'm like, here's the dictionary, definitions of these. This is what Mary says. This is what Rachel says. This is what Melissa says. This is what my friend Liz says, but I don't know how to relate it back to the story. So there are some times where you're going to trip up no matter what, even if you are the pro and you've written books.
I love that. It's called the practice. Now, Jaymi, if you ever get back to Denver, Colorado, we would love to see you in our store.
Oh,
if
man,
you ever
I'd love
come
to.
back to visit, we would love to see you. And we'd love to hear when you start sharing more and more card decks out there and books. We'd love to hear about that. How do people find you? If they want to connect with you, learn more about you, where do they go?
Well, first off, for those that are watching this, my name's down below, Jaymi Elford. It's JaymiElford for those just listening. And you can find me you can do a Google search and find me, but I have 3 websites to see all the decks that I've ever written for, the magazines that I've helped do some writing in, and books and etc. Shadesofmaybe.com is where you're going to want to go. If you want to hear about my philosophy, see my own deck collection. I'm working on putting up an actual interactive, page on that. And to book an actual reading with me, that's innercompasstarot.com. Just like if, a compass that's in your heart, INNER. If you own the book or buy the book at Violet's Wonderful Store, you can go to the book's companion site at tarotinspiredlife.com. I've got a lot of downloads, journaling pages, reference sheets. I'll probably be posting about this podcast when it comes out on that blog. And that also includes like the events that I'm doing. And right now I'm not doing a lot of going places. I just finished up teaching and producing the Northwest Tarot Symposium here in Portland. And so I'm kind of taking a hiatus, but the next big tarot convention that is coming up is in January 2023, and that is StarCon, STAARCON.com. And it's both online and in person. So again, I'm around. I love to talk tarot. So just, ping me, talk. Let's hook up and help, what can tarot do for you today?
I love that. I love that. For those watching, thanks for watching today. I hope you'll check out our other podcasts that we have. We love talking to our guests. In 2023, we're going to be expanding and doing podcasts every week in lots of different varieties. So I'm excited to see what's coming next year. But thanks for watching. And Jaymi, thanks for being with us today and sharing your passion and love for tarot and all that there is. I've truly enjoyed it. Everybody have a great day, and I hope to see you really soon at our center to discover your spiritual gifts.
Are you looking for an opportunity to fill your energy tank? When was the last time you invested in self-care? Vialet leads a weekend retreat every year in Woodland Park, Colorado. The purpose of the retreat is to reflect, restore, re-energize, and restore one's energy, focus, and direction. Violet's retreats provide the opportunities to connect, learn, and explore your healing and spirituality. What are you waiting for? You can find out more about this annual retreat at www.discoveryourspiritualgifts.com. Thank you for joining us. To find out more about Vialet, head over to discoveryourspiritualgifts.com. You can also send a personal message to Vialet through email, violet@discoveryourspiritualgifts.com. If you love the show, subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or Spotify. Until next time, remember, we are meant to have abundant and joyful lives. We hope to see you soon at Discover Your Spiritual Gifts.